Well, good evening and welcome to the March Greenbrier County Republican Club meeting. I'm Gordon Campbell. I'm your president for the rest of this year. Thank you all for coming out tonight. We're excited to have you all and appreciate you taking some time to spend some time with the club. We hope you have a good agenda for you. Tonight is going to be, again, another little bit of a special meeting. It's going to be a little more abbreviated so we can spend some time with our guests. I think that's important to you. Let me start with a couple of administrative announcements. First one is I apologize for the change of venue at the last minute. We did have an issue with the church that we worked on, and we were able to secure this building, which I think was just fine. So thank you all for coming out here. There are restrooms in the back that work, the water's on, so if you need a restroom, they are all the way back in the back room back there. Security guard just told me that as we leave tonight, it'll be a little bit dark, obviously, so there are no porch lights. He is going to pull up about 7:30 with his vehicle and have the lights on so you guys can be safe going down the sidewalk so you don't look like me. Which is the other thing I'm going to mention. So everybody has, I did fall at work about 3 weeks ago and broke my nose and had a couple of other issues. So if I kind of doze off in the meeting, I just don't think I'm being impolite. But I'm fine. I'm on the free side. But I know a lot of people were asking. I do appreciate the thoughts that everybody shared with me on that. With that, I think we're ready to get started. So, Chaplain, anything for this group tonight?
If you need it, I'll wait you.
No, thank you.
Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for the freedom to come and meet. We thank you that we live in the United States, although the character of the country has been changing the last few years. We pray and ask that you give us a fair and honest election this year. We thank you for the presence of Mr. Evans, and we pray that you will guide him, his family, and the rest of the candidates as we proceed to an election in November. We pray that God will be with each one of you and your families. We pray that you will give us considerate and civil minds this evening. These things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
We do have the American flag posted out front, and you also have it coming in, but in lieu of that, we ask Mr. Tuckler to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. We have not distributed meeting minutes sometimes, so I will skip that one and ask Allie to give us an update on the finance.
Okay, as of today, we have $11,409.41. Since the last time, we've had $70 in dues, 97 cents in interest for January, 90 cents for February. I have written 2 checks, one for the post office for $91, and one to Mr. McKinney for $200 for a newspaper ad.
Good. What? Any questions for Allie?
Membership is like duty. There's a lot of people that have non-paid dues.
Okay, we'll beat that drum. So if you did not hear Allie, we are collecting dues. The dues window is open, and if you staying remaining in the club for another year. Yeah. Okay, so $20 individual, $30 for family, cash check, money order, big small animal, we'll work out.
Or if they're not on our contact list, ask them if they'll put their phone number and email on the sign-in list, we'll get them on our contact.
Very good. So if you haven't heard Doug, we do have a pad up front. We are taking donations tonight to help offset the cost of this facility. But if you're new to the club or new to the meeting, put your name and number down and we can catch up with you and continue inviting you to more of these programs as we go forward. So if there are no questions with that, we're going to jump right into our program. We're very, very fortunate tonight to be joined by Derek Evans. Where's Derek? Up there in the back. So Derek is running for Congress in the 1st District, which is our district. He's from Wayne County originally, a graduate of West Liberty University, where he played football over there, and then went on to teach. and coach as well, all the way up to Virginia Tech, where he was a coach there for a few years. He's now in private business, and again running for office, former delegate, District 19, House of Delegates, and obviously most everyone knows that Derek is fairly famous for his January 6th experience, which I'm sure a lot of you are interested in hearing what he has to say about that, and I know I am. Also an author, wrote a book, right? So he's got a political prisoner out there, available on a number of websites if you're interested in that, married with 4 children. So with that, why don't we welcome Derek to the floor and do it again.
Awesome. Hey, thank you guys for coming out here tonight, honestly. Look what everything going on in the world, and you guys obviously care enough about our country to come out, whether you're here for political reasons or to listen to what's going on with the weaponization of government. I appreciate you guys taking the time to do that. First thing I want you guys to know is I open up for questions at the end. You guys can ask me anything you want. I'm an open book. I don't shy away from questions. You can ask anything about January 6th, prison, my platform. I don't really care. But as I said, I'm Derek Evans. I'm married to my college sweetheart. Been together for about 15 years now. The Lord has blessed us with 4 beautiful children. I've got 2 girls, ages 8 and 6, and I got 2 boys, ages 4 and 3. So it's never quiet in my house, and we got our hands full, but we wouldn't have it any other way. As he said, I'm running for U.S. Congress in the West Virginia's 1st Congressional District, which does include Greenbrier County. So at the end of the day, this is kind of like a job interview. These people forget that they work for us, and I'm here to let you know that I want to work for you. And I think that our representatives forget that sometimes, and we forget to hold them accountable and remind them of that as well. As he said, I went to the Capitol on January 6th, but first I was elected to the West Virginia House of Delegates. I was the first Republican to win my district in over 98 years. I won a landslide victory, ran on the platform of America First, a lot of those policies. I didn't shy away from anything. I'm a Christian, and I'll never forget the media tried to back me into a corner about my Christian beliefs, and so I doubled down on it. I put it on my signs, I put it on my billboards, I put it everywhere. I was going to fight for Christian values. That was my slogan in 2020, and I believe that kind of rings true today as well with this transgender movement and all these things going on in our country right now. They've taken God out of our society, and that void has to be filled with something, and right now it's being filled with darkness and evil, because this going on in our country right now, this is a battle of good versus evil. But I did go to the Capitol on January 6th. I was peaceful. I was nonviolent, non-destructive. Anybody wants to watch the video, you can go to my social media page and watch it, or I'll show you the video here tonight so you can watch it for yourself. I walked through an open set of doors. I never saw any violence or destruction that day. I was on the other side of the building. So that's one of the biggest misconceptions surrounding January 6th. The media has only showed you one very small section of that Capitol building. I don't know if some of you have never been there. It's a huge building. All the violence, all the destruction, everything you've seen surrounding January 6th is on the west tunnel entrance of the building, a very small, probably the size of this building. I was on the east side of the building. I mapped it out during my trial when I was fighting for my freedom. It was over a half-a-mile walk to get from where I was at around the building to where everything you've seen on TV is at. So I have no clue what's taking place. Anyways, once again, it's on video. I walked through an open set of doors. I go up to a police officer. I said, "Thank you for your service, sir. God bless you." And the police officer gives me a friendly fist bump. It's on video. I spent less than 10 minutes inside the building where I am guilty of chanting, "We want Trump." That's literally my charging documents. The government put this in the documents that I chanted, "We want Trump" in the Capitol. And I told people to be peaceful and not to destroy anything. I then thanked the police officer again, walked out the same set of doors I entered, and what I didn't know is that the same deep state going after President Trump, they came to my home in Wayne County, West Virginia, about 15 agents. I was home alone with my children. My oldest was 5 years old at the time. About 15 to 20 guys with guns came in my house, traumatized my children, and ripped me away from my family to hold me hostage as a January 6th political prisoner. To make a long story short about all of that, and like I said, you guys can ask questions, but I had an 18-month legal battle. It pretty much bankrupted our family. That's one of their goals and what they try to do. I did 3 months in federal prison, and I did 8 days of that in solitary confinement because I refused the COVID vaccine when they took me to prison. So they said, "You got to go to the hole." And I said, "How long?" They said, "We don't know." I said, "Well, we'll get comfortable. I'll go and stay there." The first 5 days, so when I got to the prison, they were on lockdown because somebody got stabbed before I got there. I was in a real prison. And so everything was on lockdown. So the first 5 days, I didn't have a book or anything. I was just sitting in a room. I could touch both walls with my hands. But, I've always been taught, and I think this is a West Virginia mentality, we are resilient people. We find the positive in anything, and we're pretty tough people, both mentally and physically, in my opinion. And so by the grace of God, I was on the 3rd floor of this building. And when if I stood in a very specific spot and looked out out of my cage that I was in, I could see across this walkway about from here to the wall over there, and there was basically a window, but it had bars and a cage and stuff over top of it. But if I stood in a very specific spot, I could see a fire hydrant and I could see a tree, and I could watch those shadows. And I would thank God every day that I was in that exact cell, and I could look outside and I could see that, and we were facing west. And most of the guards would tell you what time it was, but I remember I'd wait for those shadows to get to a very distinct spot. And I'd say, "Hey, guard, what time is it?" And I'd pray that they would tell me. And when they told me, I'd kind of remember that. So by the 3rd day, I could tell what time it was by looking outside. Remember, this is in the middle of the summer. It's long days. You didn't know. If you took a nap, you didn't know if you slept 20 minutes. You didn't know if you slept 2 hours. That was probably the hardest part from a mentally challenging part of solitary confinement, was just no concept of time. It was very difficult. But I'm going to jump ahead a little bit because it ties in with this part. Just when you think you're alone, you're never alone. God is always with us all the time.
Amen.
And in October 2022 is when I got out of prison. And then this last October, beginning of November, I don't remember the exact date, it was roughly a year later, I was at Mar-a-Lago, standing by the pool, hanging out with General Flynn and Roger Stone, and we were all three talking about how this government has been weaponized against us, and kind of sharing our stories about, the similar circumstances we went through. And then a few minutes later, I was kind of standing by myself, which is kind of rare at Mar-a-Lago. There's people everywhere, and everybody's trying to talk about it. And I was kind of just standing by myself, and it was amazing. Like, God was just talking to me so clearly. He was like, no matter what you're going through in life, no matter how low you are or what point you are, God has a plan for you. Because 1 year earlier, I never in my wildest dreams would have imagined I'd be at President Trump's home hanging out with General Flynn and Roger Stone and these guys. And then exactly 1 year later, that's where I was. And I already knew I was never alone, but God was just speaking to me so clearly in that moment, just reminding me that I was never alone during that whole ordeal. He was with me the entire time. And I thought that was just absolutely amazing. I try to make that part of my testimony because life is hard. And I want anybody out there who's listening to know no matter what you're going through in life, God has a plan for you. So jumping ahead, obviously I'm running for U.S. Congress, and obviously election integrity is a big part of my platform, considering everything that I've went through. I'm endorsed by Mike Lindell, and I believe that we should get rid of the machines. We need to move to paper ballots, counted by hand, one day of election, not election season. That's what we need to have and moving forward. And so those are the things that I champion. Those are the things that I push, and I think that's ultimately the way that we're going to save our country, because if they're stealing the elections, it really doesn't matter what else we're voting for, because that does, it doesn't matter if we can't get our people in there. Good news is West Virginia is not nearly as bad as a lot of these other states, but we still have some issues here to clean that up. I want to talk briefly about the illegitimate Biden regime, and I call them that because look, they can rip me away from my family, they can throw me in prison, they can throw me in solitary confinement, they can bankrupt me, they can sling my name through the fake news media, they can say whatever they want, but none of that changes the fact that they stole the election from President Trump and the American people. Yeah. The real insurrection occurred November 3rd, 2020. And I put out a video the day I got out of prison. I was out of prison less than an hour, and I put out a video and put that statement out there that everything I just went through, I just wanted to remind the American people that they stole the election. Because the whole goal with January 6th was to use myself and everyone else as examples to put fear into you, the American people. They wanted to make an example and say, look, this is what's going to happen to you. So sit down, shut up, and accept the tyranny that you live under. I'm so blessed and fortunate. I get to travel all over the country sharing, more about January 6th story, more than campaign stuff. Because I'm the keynote speaker actually next week in Delaware at the Delaware GOP convention, where I'm going to share my January 6th story. But the reason I travel all over the country doing this is I want the American people to know I'm just an average guy from southern West Virginia. I took one on the chin from the most powerful, corrupt government in the history of the world. Had my name slung through the mud by the most powerful fake news media in the history of the world. But I got up, I dusted my britches off, I'm still standing, and I'm still fighting to save this country. And if I can do that, anyone can do that. And that's my message to the American people out there. Don't give up. We still got a lot of fight left in us. I know a lot of people are afraid of being put on a list. Guess what? You're already on a list. I can promise you that. Jim Jordan put out a report last month. Anyone who has purchased a Bible with their debit card or credit card, this is from Jim Jordan, who's the chair of the Weaponization of Government Committee. Anyone who purchased a Bible, the government has put you on a list, and they are spying on you, they are surveilling you, they are watching you, they are targeting you. We have FBI whistleblowers who's come out since January 6th and after COVID They had FBI agents in parking lots for school board meetings, writing down license plates of parents who were there to speak out for their children during this time. They've had FBI agents in church parking lots, writing down license plates. These are FBI whistleblowers who've testified in front of Congress on this very issue. So what happened to me could very well happen to anybody in this room. And that's another reason I'm running. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know. I want to use my experience. I want to use everything I went through. I want to go to D.C., and I want to prevent them from doing this to other people. Because if they get an opportunity to do so, we let this illegitimate Biden regime 4 more years, they're going to try to target, I think, all the Christians in the country. That's what I think their ultimate plan is. I don't know that, but that's what I think. But anyway, sorry, I got a little rant there off there. But I want to talk about the illegitimate Biden regime. I think we all know how bad the economy is in the world and everything right now, but this Biden regime has pushed out the Green New Deal. Okay, they forced our military members to receive the COVID vaccine if they want to continue their career in the military. They've expanded abortion, the taxpayer-funded abortion, I should say. We've sent billions of dollars to Ukraine, and they've been funding gun research, red flag gun laws, all those things. But what I want you to know and understand is it was the illegitimate Biden regime who's pushing those things. But your current Congresswoman has voted for every single thing that I just mentioned. Your current Congresswoman voted to send billions of our tax dollars to Ukraine while the people of West Virginia suffer right now. Your current Congresswoman voted to expand taxpayer-funded abortions. Your current Congresswoman voted for the Green New Deal. She brought Bill Gates here to West Virginia and rolled out the red carpet with him and Joe Manchin. Okay? I wonder if they ate crickets at that, because Bill Gates wants everybody to eat crickets. He wants to stop eating real food. So I wonder if they ate crickets at their dinner. I doubt it, but they should have. So that's the thing. And what I want everybody to know is this is not a purple district. Guys, this is one of the reddest districts in the entire country. This is an R+23, meaning whoever wins this Republican primary is going to be our congressperson, period. Doesn't matter who it is. A lot of these other districts have to worry. They're like, we maybe need to elect a moderate Republican in the primary so we can win the general. That's not the case here. This is a district that deserves, you guys and myself, we deserve a Matt Gaetz, a Marjorie Taylor Greene, a Freedom Caucus member who's going to stand on the national stage and beat the drum of freedom, not only for Southern West Virginia, but for every single God-fearing conservative across this country. That's what I'm going to bring to this position. That's what I'm going to do, is give us a voice, a platform. I will fight for everybody in this room and what I believe in. I think people should know that by now after January 6th. I stand up for what I believe in. I got 2 promises that I make to the people of Southern West Virginia, the people I'm asking to vote for me. The first one is, I will never, or my wife will never trade stocks as a member of Congress. I think we need to ban insider stock trading. I can't force these people to ban it. I will propose it. Just being 100% transparent, these scumbags are never going to vote for that because that's how they make their money. But I will commit to you guys that I will never partake in it. I can't control everybody else. I'll fight and try to get that made banned. But in the meantime, I will not partake in that. I don't think it's a position you should go there to self-enrich yourself and try to make money. And then the other thing is, I'm not running to make friends. I'm not running to make a career out of this. I was telling some ladies back there earlier, I never had any desire to run for federal office. Truly, I didn't. West Virginia House of Delegates is a 60-day session. After your 60 days, you're a normal citizen, the way it should be. Citizen servants. I want to be there for my children. I want to be at the youth league games. I want to coach their games. I want to be there for their events. I don't want to go to D.C. I'll tell you, I was there a couple weeks ago meeting the Freedom Caucus, and it was terrible. I was like, the whole time I want to come back to West Virginia. But somebody's got to do this. This district is way too important. Somebody's got to stand up and fight back, and I don't believe that there's anybody out there who's going to fight harder for my children than I'm willing to do. And that's why I'm running, because I'm fearful over what the direction this country's headed in right now. I've got 4 kids. I'm fearful. I don't want them growing up in a country where we have to be fearful over which party's in charge, and then they have to be fearful of being targeted. So the other promise I make to you is I'm not running to make friends. I'm not running to play patty cake politics. I'll just be upfront and honest with you. If you guys are wanting somebody's going to go to D.C. and they're going to go sit in the country club and sip tea and try to make friends with all these people who's destroying our country, then vote for what you have, because that's what you have right now. I'm running because I don't need anybody's help to do this. This is my other promise. I'm running to kick in the front door and expose the corruption in D.C.
Amen.
If I go there for 2 years and come home, fine by me. But I'm going to give it all I got for 2 years. I'd rather do that than waller around in the swamp for 20 years and never get anything accomplished. So those are the 2 promises I make. And with that, I'd be more than happy to answer anybody's questions about my platform or January 6th or anything else for that matter. Yes, sir.
You have to know the amount of money we total expenditures to Ukraine as compared to the total expenditures we paid for these illegal immigrants?
Oh, well, it's I know that, not counting just the aid stuff, but to Ukraine at least $86 billion, and there's more of it that's went specifically for aid, but $86 billion in military stuff has been sent to Ukraine. Here's the thing: we have our own issues here in West Virginia, as we're all aware of. I don't know if you guys are dealing with it here. It's one of the questions I was going to ask you guys. Is in Wayne County and Mingo County and that portion of southern West Virginia, we have a major EMS crisis right now. We've literally, this is not hyperbole, this is not exaggeration. We've had people who have died waiting for an ambulance to show up because there's no ambulance to respond. There was a house fire in Kanawha County last fall that a house burned to the ground. There was no fire truck to respond. That's in Kanawha County. But here's the thing. Some of this money we're sending to Ukraine, we're paying the salaries and the pensions of the EMS and first responders in Ukraine while our own people are dying here in West Virginia. This is unbelievable. I can't even believe we're having this conversation right now. In terms of the illegals coming over here, look, I've been pretty blunt about it. CNN blasted me for it, which is fine. All these liberal media outlets, they come at me all the time. I'm cool with it. I said that we need to declare an invasion, and then we need to send in the military, send in the National Guard, and secure our border by any means necessary. Razor wire is nice. I think that this is an actual invasion. It's military-aged men coming across our border. They should be staring down the barrel of a gun as they're coming across our border. That's my opinion. That's what I would like to see happen. A lot of people think that's extreme. I think it's extreme to sit back and allow our country to be invaded. If this was happening to any other country in the history of this world, they'd be met with military force to be considered an invasion. And for some reason, we're just allowing this to happen. And you know, a lot of these people won't say that. I know some members of Congress who agree, but they won't say it publicly because they don't want to get blasted by the media the way that I do. That's the other thing that makes me dangerous to the deep state, if you will, is there's nothing that the government can do to me that they haven't already done. There's nothing the fake news media can say about me that they haven't already said. I don't have to tiptoe around any of those things. I can just have fun and go and represent the people here and what we believe in. So thank you for the question. Yes, sir.
Derek, what was the actual charge against you?
Yep.
What was the primary evidence to support the charge? And what was the minimum and maximum sentence for that?
Great question. Thank you. So everything surrounding January 6th is very unique. I'm one of the most unique in the sense of I was the first day of January 6th arrest. They didn't even know what they were going to do. They just was like, this is an elected Republican. We've got to arrest him. Literally, that's how it went. So when they raided my home with my children there, it was over 2 misdemeanor trespassing charges. That's why they came to my house and traumatized my family. Well, I would love to know as well. It came from D.C. because they couldn't get the attorney here in West Virginia to do it. He said no, and so it all came from D.C. And so then a few months later they added 2 more misdemeanor charges. So now I had 4 misdemeanors. Then they came and said, we're going to give you a verbal plea offer. Choose your misdemeanor, and we'll drop all the other charges. But see, they write your plea agreement when you do that. So I said, I want to see what this looks like on paper. Send us the paperwork so we can review it. Because we already knew through the conversations in these early plea agreements, I don't know about now, but in the early plea agreements, there were 2 things. This is not unique to me. This is to pretty much everybody involved in January 6th at the very beginning. The 2 things that they wanted us to say, that they were going to write for us, and we were just going to have to sign that if we wanted. They wanted us to number 1, say that the election wasn't stolen, that we were wrong. And number 2, they wanted us to blame President Trump for our actions on that day. So when we refused to do that, that's when the infamous 1512 obstruction of official proceeding charge started coming down. I was one of those who got hit by that. The Supreme Court is supposed to be ruling on that any time now. That's a 20-year felony. So in one phone call, when they removed the plea offer and hit me with that charge, it was one of the lowest moments for me. I'll tell you the 2 lowest moments during this whole ordeal. This was the second lowest moment. I was expecting a call from my attorney to tell me, hey, we got this in writing, let's look it over type of thing on the plea offer. And instead it was my attorney, and he was telling me that, hey, they withdrew that, and they're hitting you with a 1512, a 20-year felony. So in one phone call, I was now facing 24 years in prison. And I remember I told my wife, I said, hey, it's Dave calling, that's my attorney. And she was in the living room with the kids, and I could just feel my face drop. I could just feel my gut, you know what I mean? And I'll just be honest with you, I went to the bathroom, I locked the door, I turned on the fan so nobody could hear me, and I just started bawling my eyes out. I'll never forget looking at myself in the mirror. It's one of the lowest moments, because I got 2 girls and 2 boys, but in that moment, for whatever reason, I kept thinking about little girls. I said, I'm not even going to be home in time to walk them down the aisle and give them away. I'm going to miss out on my kids' entire life over this. That's where I was at the middle point. The hardest moment of the whole ordeal was the day that they arrested me. I was home alone with my children, and they put me in the back of the SUV. It's tinted windows. I can see out. They can't see in. When they first got there, I took my kids back to the bedroom. I said, "You play on your tablet while Daddy talks to his friends." I didn't know what to do. But I was trying to protect them not only emotionally and mentally, but even physically. I didn't know what was going on. I just saw guys with guns coming to my house and I was trying to protect them. But as I was in the back of the SUV, got a big window in my living room, and my two girls were standing in the window looking out, just bawling their eyes out, wanting to know where Dad was at. And I'm cuffed, and they can't even see me. I can't even tell them I'm okay, or there's nothing I could do. And my neighbors are there, waiting on my grandparents to get there, because my grandparents lived a few miles away. That was the hardest moment for me probably in that whole ordeal. So then I was facing that felony charge and the 4 misdemeanors. Well, then they wanted to offer me a plea deal of I don't know, it was like 4 or 5 years in prison. I said, I'm not doing that. They refused to move the trials out of D.C. We realized there's no getting a fair trial in D.C. You finally accept the reality of you can't win. It's how do you lose the least amount and circle back to live to fight another day. So that's what a lot of people have done in that regard. And then they started threatening, not just myself, many others, with terrorist enhancements, which would have taken that from 24 years to about 40 years in prison for terrorist enhancements. That's what led to Matthew Perna hanging himself. Matthew Perna, we've had several January 6th political prisoners who have committed suicide throughout this whole ordeal, just from the pressure from the media and the government, and the bullying from the government. Matthew Perna is one of those. Incredible story, incredible young man, incredible family. I've got to know the family really well. I kind of traveled with them on some of this touring to speak. And so Matthew had accepted a plea offer, already signed it and everything. And then they came back and said, we're going to add, so he was going to get 8 months in prison. And he was so excited. He's like, I'm just going to treat this as a mission trip. That's what I did. And we can talk about that. And that's where he was at mentally, and I'm going to get this behind me. And then they came and said, we're going to hit you with a terrorist enhancement. So now instead of 8 months in prison, he already signed the plea deal. So now instead of 8 months in prison, he was looking at 5, 6, 7 years in prison. It was just, couldn't take it anymore. And so he went to his garage and hanged himself. And there's been several who have done this throughout the January 6th community, unfortunately. And those are just the ones we know about. We know of many others who have as well. They were not charged, but maybe they were put on a watch list because their picture was at the Capitol. And so that's what our government's doing to the American people right now. It's absolutely terrible what this weaponized DOJ is doing. But the weaponized DOJ is one thing. If there's one thing I want you guys to learn tonight and really retain, is we all hear all over the media the weaponized DOJ, and it is true, they are. But as someone who went through the whole process, I think the scariest part of it all as Americans is our weaponized court system. And the reason I say that is, if we had a fair and honorable court system and fair judges, a weaponized DOJ could bring all the charges that they wanted, and the court system would throw it out. It would die as soon as it got here. But what we're finding is the court system, the judges are just as corrupt, if not more corrupt, than the DOJ. And I'm going to give you one quick example as to what they're doing in D.C. surrounding all this. So, John Strand, good friend of mine, spoke with him on a panel at CPAC last year. He's in prison right now in Miami for January 6th. At his trial, the judge allowed this to happen now. I don't know if anybody's in here familiar with courts. I wasn't, but I've learned a lot. The prosecuting attorneys, the government, showed a picture, and John Strand, just so you guys know, was Dr. Simone Gold, American Frontline Doctors, another good friend of mine. He was her bodyguard that day. She was a scheduled speaker. So he was just there being her bodyguard. So anyways, they showed a picture of John, and the government presented it to the jury as if John was yelling and berating police officers. In reality, you can even see the play button on this picture that they showed. It was a screenshot, or they stopped the video right there. And if you push play on the video, you would see that John was actually clapping and thanking the police officers. Literally, this happened. The judge allowed the government to paint John as someone who's yelling and berating police officers. They caught him in the middle of clapping or whatever and paused it. But they would not allow John's attorneys to push play on the video, which would have destroyed that narrative. That's where we're at right now, and that's how corrupt the court systems are. And that's what President Trump is dealing with right now with these corrupt DAs and all this stuff going on with all the things that are coming after President Trump for. So sorry I rambled a little bit, probably gave too much, but absolutely. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Stand up and protect all of you all that were so falsely accused.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. As a majority, Republicans have control of Congress right now. We are represented by a bunch of spineless, jellyback rhinos. They don't have the courage of any. The Scarecrow from Wizard of Oz has more courage than they do. That's really what it comes down to. They don't want to be berated in the media. So here's all of us in the January 6th community. We break it down into two different segments. Okay, there's pre-President Trump arrest. Okay, before President Trump got arrested, if you think back to it, the conservative media wouldn't even cover us. Fox wouldn't cover us. None of these places. So all day long, what you heard from the left was insurrection, domestic terrorists, insurrection, domestic terrorists. But they wouldn't let us. They wouldn't even defend us on the media. These representatives in Congress wouldn't even touch us. They wanted nothing to do with us. After President Trump got arrested, it then became more mainstream of this weaponization of government. And then all of a sudden, the media starts really talking about us and January 6th, and the members of Congress are being more friendly towards us, but it's not because it was the right thing to do. It's because they were trying to score political points, because now all of a sudden it was popular and it was okay to talk about it. What people don't understand, guys, is it's not even just the court system. So I've been canceled from like everything. Chase Bank canceled us. I can't get a checking account at any major checking. Canceled my wife for being married to me. Okay? I can't get a checking account at any major banking institution. I have a local community bank, back home, like a little regional bank. They're the ones that will work with me. I have a 742 credit score as of a couple weeks ago. Can't get a loan at any major place to get a loan. And before this, I was in real estate. Okay, so I flip homes, and so I'll go to Home Depot, Lowe's, or wherever. I'd buy materials on a line of credit with them. I'd put it all into the home and fix the home, and then sell the home or cash out refinance it, pull it out, pay that off, put the extra in my pocket, and go do it again. I can't do that anymore because I can't get it's not Home Depot or Lowe's. The banks they work with won't work with me. It's the bank. The banking industry has their claws in all this, and you've noticed they're now starting to track people who purchase guns. Right? They have special codes now if you use your debit card or credit card to purchase a gun. That's what it's all. That's why they're wanting to move to digital currency. Then they have control over everything in your entire life. Like, we cannot allow them to have digital currency and roll that out and replace what we have right now, because that's what they're going to do. You do something, you post something on social media they don't like, push a button, and you can't use your money anymore. So what do? You can't buy anything, you can't sell anything, you can't be a member of society. When I travel, I just came off of this list. Okay, I was on the Quad S list. It's the Quiet Skies. Gateway Pundit has done some articles on it if you guys want to look it up. It's called the Quiet Skies list. It's the highest classification you can have and still fly on an airplane. So much like the Patriot Act, it was good in theory when they first wanted to do it. This was designed to track international terrorists who were flying into America. That's what it was designed for. They've turned around and weaponized that against January 6 political prisoners. There's not even air marshals on your airplanes anymore because they're following January 6 political prisoners. No joke. You can look it up. They don't even have them like used to. They had air marshals on every plane. They don't have them on every plane anymore because they don't have enough to do that, because they're tracking so many, not just January 6 political prisoners, but all the people they've deemed as enemies of it. So when I fly, the last time I flew was the first time I didn't have to do this, so I'm off the list now finally. Don't know why. I can't check in online. When I go to the desk to check in at American Airlines, it's a 15 to 20 minute process. They're calling this number that pops up when they try to check me in. The screen turned red and started flashing. People started running out. They come over to the thing, we're on hot and security, all this stuff. Seriously. And then in about 15, 20 minutes, they finally give me my boarding pass. There's 4 S's at the top left corner, 4 S's at the bottom. That's why they call it the Quad S list. So then I go to TSA. Get to TSA, and they pull you to the side in front of everybody. They read this long disclaimer off to you, about 2 to 3 minutes. The gist of it is, once you start this process, you have to complete the process. There's no going back, whether you decide to fly or not. Do you want to continue? I'm like, yeah, I want to fly today. I definitely want to continue. So then you go through the metal detectors like everybody else. Before you go any further, they make you sit down. They pull a seat over there. And you have your shoes off. They rub the bottom of my feet, checking for stuff on the bottom of my feet. I was like, okay. Then they swab my hands for explosives. This is just getting started. Yep. Then we go over to where they have all my luggage, and there's a plexiglass there so I can see through it. They swab the outside of my bags for explosives. They take every single item in my bag out of the bag and swab every individual item for explosives. Then they swab the inside of the bag for explosives. Then you pack it all back up, and they say you can fly. Well, I'm flying out of Huntington Tri-State Airport. It's about as big as this room right here. It's not very big. I go sit down. 10 minutes later, they start calling for boarding. I get up, go get in line. They brought all the machines out there, pulled me over, and we did the whole process all over again. Right there. We delayed the flight for about 20 minutes. I get to Charlotte. There's 7 TSA agents waiting on me. Follow me around. I go to Panda Express. It's one of my favorite places in that airport. I go to Panda Express and eat. They watch me eat. Go to the connecting flight. They make an announcement. Hey, everybody's going to have their IDs out. And everybody's grumbling. They don't know why. I'm like, I know why. It's because of me. And so then they bring the machines over. And sure enough, on the connecting flight, did it all over again. Everything out of the bag. Swab everything. That's what they're doing right now. And they did this to an infant. A newborn, like 6-week-old baby, who is the child of a January 6th political prisoner, was placed on this list and forced to go through the whole process. It's not just the January 6th people who've been arrested for it. It's their wives, it's their children, it's their parents, it's their aunts, it's their uncles. They're doing this to everybody who's associated with these people. Harassment is exactly what it is. And that's what we're dealing with right now in this country in terms of the weaponization of government is so much worse than anyone could ever imagine right now. I mean, it really is. I'll be honest with you guys, if I didn't live through this, I wouldn't believe half of it. I really wouldn't. So, but this is what's going on right now. You got a question?
Yes, you believe in limited terms and age limit for
I support term limits 100%. I signed the U.S. term limits pledge. We absolutely need term limits in this country. And unfortunately, once again, they're not going to pass that, but we should. And it might even take I don't know, a constitutional amendment. I don't know, but then on top of that, there needs to be an additional ban. Is after they serve their term, they should be allowed to become lobbyists. Should be allowed to become a lobbyist. They go in there and lobby and enrich yourself anymore.
how about the age limit for president of Congress?
I don't know. I think a mental test maybe is better. I don't know how you would really gauge that though. I don't know. I mean, there's a minimum age limit, so maybe there should. I mean, back. Huh?
A mental test?
Yeah. Joe Biden would fail that one. But I'll tell you right now, we want Joe Biden to be the nominee.
Yeah, we do.
We've already lived through 3.5 years of this guy at this point. Like, we can make it another 6 months, I promise you. So we want him to be the nominee. My fear is that by August he's going to be out and they're going to replace him with Michelle Obama or somebody. That's my fear. So we want, Big Mike. We want Biden to be the nominee. So we will be very careful with that. When I see a lot of conservative media after it came out that he was not mentally capable of standing trial, but he's mentally capable of running our country. And there were people saying we need to get rid of him. We should have got rid of him like 3 years ago, but now at this point, I think we've already lived through it. Let's just survive it.
Another question. What's the probability of Biden being elected president and he has the governor of California as his vice president? And then a week later, he resigns.
It's very possible. I'll tell you, I don't know anyone out there who looks at California and says, that's what I want. I tell everybody, don't California my West Virginia. That's what I don't bring those values here. We don't want those. That's not, but this all comes back to we have too much central power at the federal government. There's too much power. Our founding fathers, power is supposed to originate at the local level and work its way up. And it's exact opposite right now. We should never have this much power in Congress. I want to abolish most of these not just defund, but abolish most of these 3-letter agencies, return the power back to the states, back to the local communities, back to you and me and we the people where there's real accountability, like the Federal Department of Education. Why are they telling us how to educate our children? They give us money here in West Virginia, and then they say there's strings attached to it. If you want this money, then now you have to teach that boys can be girls and girls can be boys. And I say nonsense with that. Get rid of them, to completely defund them and do away with it. We have these unelected bureaucrats who are running our country behind the scenes, unconstitutionally, mind you, with no accountability. That's one of the biggest issues in our country, and we have to get a hold of it.
How do we ensure that they're not going to cheat again?
It's a great question. I'll tell you, it keeps me up at night, honestly. And look, I know we all got a lot of stake at this. I joke and tell people, like, guys, I've been with President Trump in person, and he told me, so what do you want when I get elected? I said, I want a pardon. I want my name cleared. He said, well, don't even worry about that. That's happening on day one. What else do you want? I said, I don't want anything else. I just want my name cleared. And so I've got a lot of skin in the game in terms of getting President Trump in office as well, even from a personal standpoint of getting my life back and being able to bank again and be able to, my children not be targeted and everything. So it keeps me up at night. It really does. But I'll tell you, we've made a lot of progress, more than we probably realize, honestly. And even with all the cheating, it looks bad on the Electoral College map, but really it's about 40,000 votes across several states. It's really all the difference. So there's like 10,000 votes in Georgia. And, I mean, they don't have the surprise of COVID again or the mail-in ballots. Some of the judges have struck some of that down and ruled it was unconstitutional, as we all know. And so I think we've made a lot of progress in that regard. And I don't know the answer. Now, Mike Lindell, guys, I don't know if you ever met him. He's one of the most amazing people ever. He's got a huge heart. He's been targeted like no other. They're trying to bankrupt him. The MyPillow guy. He created a machine that they actually used it in the 22 elections. Like Kentucky and Virginia and some of these states had their elections just last, back in November or whatever. So he created a machine that would test to see if the machines were online. Like I don't know, not a very big technology guy, but they have a way of, within 400 feet of that machine, they can tell all the devices that are online. It tells you Dominion or whatever else. And they have already proven that these machines were online. So here's my thing. I want to get rid of the machines completely, but I also understand that that's going to be a hard task to do. So I think that we should at least work towards that. So my question to the people in West Virginia specifically, since it's in our state, I think us being a small state, we can lead the charge on a lot of these issues. My question is, if they're not legally allowed to be hooked to the internet, why do they have the capability of being hooked to the internet? You can build a machine without a Wi-Fi card, without the ability to be hooked to the internet. So I think that's probably the first step in moving in that direction. But to answer your question, I don't know.
Like, who's going to monitor it?
Well, I mean, look in Michigan in 2020, and people tried to monitor. They put the paper up over the windows so people couldn't watch. It was so corrupt. They are the real criminals, the ones who stole the election. They turn around through people like me in prison, and I publicly said, I said it on national TV, we need to have a prisoner exchange in this country. We need to release the January 6th political prisoners and lock up the real criminals who stole the election from the American people. That's what we need to do. But I'm an extremist considered to the media. CNN actually came to an event in January of mine and called me an extremist because I said that, it's on my Facebook if anyone wants to watch it, I said, boys are boys and girls are girls, and I don't want boys in the locker room with my little girls. They said I was an extremist. I said, if that's your definition of an extremist, then guilty as charged. That's fine. But that's not extreme, that's normal. That's normal to say that boys are, and I told him, I said, look, if there's a man out there who thinks he's going to go in the bathroom with my little girls, better know one thing, is I have no problem going back to prison. And I'm telling you. And you know what? This is a deeper conversation, though. This is all happening right now because we have a society full of weak men.
Yeah.
When you guys were my age or younger, what would your daddy's done? Somebody went to the bathroom with a little girl. They went in and drug him out there. They didn't care what happened. They started this attack about 10, 15 years ago on toxic masculinity, saying it was toxic to be masculine, it's toxic to be manly or whatever, and they stripped that down. So now, if that's the case, then why can't boys be girls and girls be boys? And now that's the attack that they're doing. This is a cult of transgenderism that's spreading across our country right now, and it's starting at the public universities. That's what these public universities have been turned into liberal indoctrination camps. That's what they're doing. My belief is they get a lot of federal tax dollars, a lot of state tax dollars. We need to go to these public universities and we need to say, look, either get back to teaching reading, math, science, and the actual things that matter, and stop creating social justice warriors. Or if you want to create social justice warriors, you're not getting any more tax dollars. You can be a private university. We can't do anything to Harvard, but we can do something with stealing our Christian tax dollars and turning around and using it to indoctrinate our children. Because here's the thing you want to, in the school, I was a school teacher for 4 years. What scared me the most about these teachers right now in the school system, the ones who are these left-wing extremists, is they're not pushing this transgenderism and stuff on our kids out of malicious intent. That's the scary part. They're doing it because they've been indoctrinated and they have been convinced that it is their moral duty to step in and step over top of the parents and teach these children this. That's the scary part to me, that they've been convinced of that. And where did they get convinced of that? At the liberal indoctrination camps of our public universities. And so we're going to have to do something about it. That's where we cut the head of the snake off. It's not a popular stance out there because, we got to have education. I don't think we need education if that's what we're educating people. Yeah. We're educating people that boys can be girls and girls can be boys. I don't think we need it. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I am sorry to ask this, and you can say no if you want to, but with all of the restrictions that have been put upon you for banking, where are you getting your support?
So I am so blessed and fortunate, honestly. As we know in West Virginia, typically, either you self-fund your campaign because you're a millionaire, or you sell out to some big millionaire who's going to fund your campaign for you. Because of everything that's happened to me, I've been able to fundraise nationally from just people like us. We're closing in on 10,000 donors at this point. We've raised over $500,000 from everybody chipping in $50, $60 here and there. That's the backbone of our campaign. The good news is I don't answer to Big Pharma. I don't answer to the military-industrial complex. I don't answer to some millionaire or some super PAC somewhere. I answer to the American people. That's the only people I answer to. So yeah, it's the whole thing is terrible. What myself and look, what I went through is just scratching the surface on what some of these other people went through. They're still sitting in prison right now in solitary confinement, and I don't know how some of them have done it for as long as they have. Because I'll tell you, that was the longest 8 days of my life. I couldn't imagine doing it for 8 months or a year or something. I couldn't imagine that. But I'm backed by the American people. It's a great question, and I think you've answered it. Yeah.
Derek, I think we all understand some things you feel strongly about.
Yep.
But I would encourage you, if you haven't already, to go to Derek's website and look at his philosophies and his ideology and his ideas. I was really, really pleasantly surprised and impressed with it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's just
I didn't think an old
Is
West
the
Virginia football player
documentary on
had
there
to do all that.
what is it?
You said there was a documentary about that.
No, there's a couple documentaries. Epic Times has put out a documentary. Newsmax has put one out. I'm in a couple of those.
And you find them on your website.
You can not those ones. You can go to my website though and find my personal video that I took that day. It's only like a minute or two long of me in the building there. One of the dumbest things that some people say, and I think is the smartest thing looking back on it, I did was I live streamed the whole thing that day. I had a big following on social media. When I hit end on that video, I had over 1 million views, and I didn't think that I was doing anything really that wrong. I mean, I thought that. So one of the things the government actually got mad at me, and I could be a little bit smart aleck sometimes, is they kept saying I was trying to overthrow the government. And I said, you guys must think that I'm Jason Bourne, that I'm capable of overthrowing the government with a cell phone and an American flag in my hand. That's all I have. And I'm flattered that you think that I have those skills, but I promise you that I don't. So it's just, it's mind-blowing. That's their whole thing. It was obvious from the get-go that they were coming after President Trump. All of us in the J6 community noticed that early on. And that's why we were reaching out to our members of Congress as well. We were saying, hey, you guys, this is not ending with us. They're coming after President Trump. They're coming after everybody else. And I'll tell you, so when I got out of, even before I went into prison, I had some people reaching out in some of the big conservative groups, people like, with Mike Lindell and General Flynn and these sorts of groups, asking if I would consider running for Congress. And I was like, listen, I'm not even thinking about that right now. I just want to go serve my time, survive prison, not get killed, and come home. And then we'll figure things out from there. So I got out in October. Then the November election happened. Republicans took control of the House, the U.S. House that we have now. Congresswoman Miller came to an event in Wayne, West Virginia, and I went to the event. Went up and introduced myself. She already knew who I was, obviously. And I said, now the Republicans have control of Congress, I want to know what you guys are going to do about the weaponization of government that's taking place in our country. What are you guys going to do about, you guys going to hold a committee? You guys going to have hearings? What are you going to do? And she I couldn't believe it. I thought she'd at least lie to me. I mean, honestly, to her credit, she was honest. She said nothing. Not going to do nothing. It's time for us to move forward as a country. And I said, listen, Congresswoman, I'm not here for myself. I've already served my prison time. There's nothing you can do for me at this point. But there's other West Virginians right now in your district who are facing what I've went through. And I don't want them to go through that. They're coming after President Trump. They're coming after Christians. Like, you guys got to do something. She told me no. So I went and sat down at the table, and I started texting all those people back. And I said, if I were to run, what would that look like? And that's kind of how it came about into me deciding to officially run for Congress.
So Derek, to that point, there have been some media discussions about your eligibility.
Yeah.
For running.
Yeah.
Can you explain how you stand on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the same group that's trying to throw President Trump off the ballot in all these states, which the Supreme Court just ruled on Monday 9-0, even Ketanji Brown, she doesn't know what a woman is, but she knows there was no insurrection. That's pretty fascinating. But they ruled 9-0, there was not an insurrection or whatever. But the same group is called CREW, C-R-E-W. It's funded by George Soros. Okay, so yeah, I know, right? So when I first announced that I was going to run for U.S. Congress, CREW, funded by George Soros, put out a statement, came to West Virginia and said that I was ineligible to run for Congress because I was an insurrectionist. Secretary of State's office here in West Virginia kind of looked over everything. They put out a response and said this guy was never charged. let alone convicted of insurrection. He's 100% eligible and he'll be on the ballot. Now, I think that the reason they didn't push it in court here is because they knew they couldn't get a jury to go along with them. And if they took it to court in West Virginia and a West Virginia jury said, no, he's allowed to run, then in Colorado and these other states, it was going to make it harder for them to go after him. Because if you notice, not only are they going after President Trump in the blue states, they're going after them in the bluest cities in the blue states. They are handpicking, because he's running nationally, they can handpick whatever judge they want to be in front of, whatever court, and that's how they went about this. And so I think that's why they didn't. And I'll be honest with you, we tossed around the idea a little bit early on when they first started going after President Trump really hard. We tossed around the idea a little bit of getting a local citizen, even a supporter of mine, to challenge it in court in West Virginia just so we could get the court here to say that's dumb, that he's not guilty of that, so it would help President Trump. We actually tossed that idea around. We didn't have to do that, thankfully. But yeah, that was a consideration of ours. Because I'll tell you, obviously I want to win my race, but getting President Trump reelected into office right now is probably the most single crucial thing we could do to save our country.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Derek, you got a little blurb on here about PPP loans.
Yep.
Maybe most folks know what they are.
Yep.
I had one local business owner here said the attorney called and said, you need to take out this PPP loan. The answer was, I don't need it. I didn't suffer anything. The attorney's answer was, take it anyway. You'll never have to pay it back. And that person did, to the tune of about $175,000.
Yep.
Now, the PPP loans are all public. I presume that's where you got your information from,
Yep.
was my name from the federal database.
Yep.
But why don't you explain this
Yes.
$3.1 million PPP?
Good question. So the PPP loan was designed for businesses who were affected during the COVID tyranny that we all lived under. I mean, probably one of the most tyrannical things we've ever experienced in our lifetimes. And that's what it was designed for, to help those businesses who were shut down. The key thing I think here, I have no issue with businesses who were affected or businesses who took it or whatever. You know, my mother-in-law and father-in-law, they don't live in West Virginia, they live in Ohio. They're both chiropractors. They took one out as well. They paid theirs back, but they took one out as well during that time. Or most of it, I should say anyways. I don't know if they paid the whole thing back. But anyways, the key here is Congresswoman Carol Miller was supporting the lockdowns the entire time, supporting the COVID tyranny. She was helping fund the COVID tyranny that we were all living under. She was supporting all of that. So to me, that's key to this whole story. On top of all of this, their car business was considered essential. It wasn't essential to go to church, but you could go buy a brand new car if you wanted to. Okay? It was considered, so her business never shut down. It was considered essential. She took out a $3.1 million PPP loan, which is the largest of any member in Congress, and then had it forgiven, and us, the taxpayers, paid it back for it.
As she did, and her son is using it to fund his campaign.
Very possible. I've wondered that as well. And I'll also say that she's got 57, according to Quiver Quantitative, which is a research group. I don't know how to research it, so I want to stop their work on that. 57 violations of the Stock Trading Act from insider stock trading that's taken place since she's been in Congress. 57. It's unbelievable what's really going on in terms of all of that. I think it's corrupt. I think it is. I think it's, and on top of that, we talk about money laundering on the back end. Like we all talk about Ukraine, like we know they're laundering money, right? And everybody knows that the money's going over there, and Zelensky's keeping some of it, and then sending some of it back. But we don't talk about the money laundering on the front end, and it kind of ties in with all of that. So while, and she's not the only one, but while she was supporting the lockdowns and the mandates, she was profiting in the stocks that she owned in Pfizer and Moderna and all of those who were being awarded these government contracts from the stocks that she held at that time. Same thing when she's been voting to send money to Ukraine, she just happened to own stocks in the military-industrial complex companies who were being awarded the contracts. So look, if I know that this business is getting ready to be awarded a $50 billion contract because I'm going to vote for it, and I buy stock in it, and then they get $50 billion, that stock's going to go way up, and then I sell it and I make that profit. That's frontline money laundering is what's going on. Yeah. And that's why we've got to ban insider stock trading from taking place in our country. And they're almost all of them are doing it. It's disgusting. Martha Stewart went to prison for doing less than what our members of Congress are doing right now in terms of the insider stock trading. It's unbelievable. Huh?
But they're exempt.
Exactly.
They only pay a small portion of a fine on the profits that they make.
Correct. Just like they're exempt from Obamacare. They always create these laws and they rot themselves out of it. Everything that they do. They always get the special treatment somehow or another because they're the ones creating the law. It's unbelievable.
Derek, did you know that after we gave them the first $60 billion to the Ukraine, that Zelensky's mother-in-law bought a $4.8 billion estate in Egypt?
Yep, and Zelensky bought a mansion and he bought a big yacht with that money as well. Once again, you can't even make this up that this is happening right now. As far as I'm concerned, look, Americans are charitable people. We're a Christian nation. We're charitable people. We give to a lot of causes. But guess what? It's not the government's job to steal your money and then turn around and give it to whoever they want to. That's not my job. That's your money. If we've got enough money to send to other countries, we should be cutting taxes and returning the money back to the American people. That's what we need to do. Look, if my brother came to me right now and said, "Hey man, I need $5 million," I'd say, "Dude, I love you, but I don't have it." Right? That's where we're at as a country. We're $34 trillion in debt. And we're borrowing money from China to send to Ukraine. Think about it, guys. We're printing money right now that our great-great-great-great-grandchildren won't even be able to pay back. Our interest rate alone on our national debt right now is around $1 trillion a year on the interest alone in this country.
$30 every 100 days.
Okay, even worse than I thought. Okay, so it's over $3 trillion a year, almost $4 trillion a year in interest. And they just keep piling it on. It's time to start cutting the fat in D.C. It's time to start cutting. Look, if this is happening in your household, guess what? We don't go out to eat this week. We eat bologna and bread. It's time for our federal government to start eating bologna and bread. That's what it's time for them to do. I mean, I don't know no way to put it, but that's what needs to happen, and they just keep expanding it. It's awful. Yes, sir.
Yeah, my question was about the budget and the deficit and the omnibus bill that they just passed. How would you deal with that process?
Well, I would have voted no on the omnibus bill. I believe in single subject voting. We need to get to that, to where people can't hide behind their votes and they can be held accountable for what. I don't care if we've got 19 years of bills backed up. We should sit down and vote on them, single issue things. So I know a lot of people was like, well, they'd shut down the government. Well, first of all, I don't think they've ever been in D.C. pushing buttons that gave a positive impact on our lives. So probably would be beneficial to all of us common folk if the government was shut down for a few weeks, to be honest with you. But you fix this at the beginning of the year. They do this stuff on purpose. The beginning of the year, they should make it a priority to handle everything that's to do with Social Security, our military, our veterans, those sorts of things, so they can't hold it hostage at the end of the year. Because what they do is they save it to the end of the year, they tell you have to vote for this, and if you don't, then it's like, oh, you voted for your mama and papa not to get their Social Security check. You're a scumbag. And it's like, no, I voted because I didn't want to kill babies with my tax dollars. And so to answer your question, we got to get to the single subject voting, which is what the Freedom Caucus had forced McCarthy to do to become speaker, and then he went back on that. And that's part of the reason why they made the motion to vacate, to get rid of him, because he would not hold that promise that he made of single subject voting. That was one of the biggest issues that they had. And so we got to get to that, and then we got to start taking care of the major issues at the very beginning. And look, it burns me up that they use Social Security especially against the American people, because guess what? You paid into that for years, and actually are getting less probably than what you would have if you'd have been able to put that money into a private system of some sort. So they already took their money, and now they're trying to hold it hostage and hold it against our people. And I watch my grandparents deal with it on a regular basis. I'm very close to my grandparents, and people, they're on fixed income. We got this inflation going through the roof right now, but guess what? Your income stays the same. Because when you said I'm going to retire, I need this much to live. Well, the cost of living was here, and now we got cost of living here, and you're still making this amount. And that's some of the effects we're dealing with right now. But we're going to have to get rid of the omnibus bills. There's no reason for an omnibus bill other than to stuff it with pork. And what happens is that we don't have enough votes to pass it, so they'll come to you and say, hey man, what do you need? What do you want what's going to make you look good? I want $10 million for WVU. Okay, cool. And then you go to the other ones. What do you need? I need $10 million for UK or whatever. And then that's what they do. And by the time they get through to everybody to get enough votes, it's this massive bill, and it has nothing to do with what they originally started with. And we're going to have to stop doing that. Start holding the line. I think we're going to have to hold the line on some of these issues. Once again, it's not fun to eat bologna and bread. Sometimes we have to do it, and I think that's where we're at as a country right now, as a government. Real quick, I'll answer. Think about how terrible they are at managing money, the government. They steal the tax. They steal dollars from every single citizen in the country, So, yes, sir.
Were there any other elected Republicans at the Capitol on January 6th?
There were some that was there. I'm the only elected legislator in the country who was arrested and thrown in prison for peacefully protesting that day.
But there were others there.
There were others who were there. Yes, sir. Yep. And a good friend of mine, Coy Griffin, Cowboys for Trump. You guys probably remember on the news a few years back, they rode the horses through D.C. on all the Cowboys and stuff. It's pretty cool. He's a county commissioner from New Mexico, and he was also arrested and thrown in prison in solitary confinement. So we were the only two elected officials in the country. I'm the only elected legislator. He was a county commissioner. We were the only two who was arrested and thrown in prison for peacefully protest. And then once again, it's me because I was an elected Republican, and him was because he was elected. He didn't even go in the building. He stood on the steps outside and said a prayer in a megaphone. And they arrested him, threw him in solitary confinement. Yep.
How did they get you off?
How to get out of prison?
Yeah, what's the status of your?
So I'm on probation for another year and a half now. I have 3 years of probation. I've served about half of it. And so when I want to travel, I have to request the government to approve my travel. So for instance, next weekend, seriously, so next weekend, my wife's family, they live all over the place. They're getting together in Tennessee for like a little weekend family get-together. So we had that planned for a while. And then the Delaware GOP called and asked if I would come and speak at their event. They're going to pay me and everything. I said, okay. And so I had to put in this crazy travel request because I'm saying I'm traveling to Tennessee on Thursday. On Friday, I'm flying from there to Delaware, to Philadelphia, and driving into Delaware for the event. On Saturday, I'm flying back to Tennessee to spend another day in there, and I had to go to the government and get permission for all of that, for them to tell me that I could.
And you're still going to get undressed every time you get on an airplane?
Yep, pretty much. Yep.
You need a portable phone booth.
I do. Listen, I'll tell you, when they first came to me, they said, do you want a private screening? When the first time I went through it, and I said, no, that's fine. About halfway through that, I was like, yeah, I should have really requested that, because, listen, I've had some pretty serious pat-downs. I went to prison, right? This was the most intense pat-down I've ever had. They touched every square inch of my body. They touched inside my clothes, outside my clothes, every nook. They touched me everywhere. And I was like, whoo. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, this is a little off topic, but
Okay.
how do you, I'm concerned about geoengineering and the chemtrails because we're being sprayed constantly
Yep.
with aluminum and barium.
It's not just that, it's the GMOs, the Monsanto stuff, poisoning our food. And you talk to people in other countries who come here to visit us, and they're like, they can't believe how bloated they feel after eating the same products here compared to Europe or other places. And a lot of these other countries have already banned those products, and we haven't done that here. Once again, it gets back to the lobbyists. It goes back to them selling out to these corporations who come in and they say, pass this bill, and we'll give you $1 million.
Well, Bill Gates
They do.
funds a lot.
They does. He's buying up farmland in our country for a reason, and it's really weird to me. He doesn't do anything by accident, and then we got China buying land in our country. This is unbelievable, guys. I can't even believe we're having to have this conversation, but China should not be allowed to own or any other country for that matter, should not be allowed to own a single grain of American sand.
Yes.
Anywhere. Like, this is insane that we're even having this conversation. Or our mineral rights. Guys, think about the money that this country has. They don't have to conquer us. They just start buying it up. They don't have to send a military, and it'd probably be cheaper to buy it than it would be to invade. And they can come in here and imagine if they start buying all of our natural gas and our oil and our coal in this country. Imagine they bought it all in West Virginia and it's owned by China, which, think about that. And they've talked about it. They've talked about selling some of this to Chinese companies. It should not be allowed to happen. It's common sense. We need to put America first.
Curry bought some in McDowell County.
China did?
All mine, yes.
It's unbelievable.
Well, when we quit producing oil and Russia starts producing, we're the ones that are allowing Russia to be able to pay
Yep.
to rebuild their military machine and stay in Ukraine.
Absolutely. Well, under President Trump, we were a net exporter of energy, and we were on our way to being an energy dominant. Now we are standing on the national stage begging Venezuela and other countries to please give us some oil to serve Venezuela. It's absolutely disgusting.
That'll end in January next year.
Yeah, but we that goes back to the 3-letter agencies. We've got to defund and abolish the EPA, the federal EPA. They're coming in here and telling us they require, I'm sure most of you guys already know, but they required the water coming out of the coal mines under the Obama administration. This is basically Obama's third term we're living under right now. But they required the coal mines, the water coming out of there to be cleaner than the water coming out of your kitchen sink. Regulated them out of business. And they tore down half the coal-fired power plants. If I was in charge of West Virginia, it's going to sound extreme, but I'm just telling you, I'm not running to be in charge of West Virginia, so nobody worry. But if I was, and I was in charge of West Virginia, I would tell the federal government, you guys have sanctuary cities and sanctuary states that are not following the law when it comes to these illegals coming across our border right now. We are going to be a sanctuary natural energy resource state. We're going to mine coal. We're going to build coal-fired power plants. We're going to supply our people with cheap coal produced energy, and if you don't like it, come on here and try to stop us, and you're going to meet the West Virginia National Guard. That's what I would do. That's where we're at right now as a country. That's what we need to do.
And we win at the Supreme Court.
We did, West Virginia versus EPA.
At least 3 times.
And they're still doing it. So what? So they're still doing it, though. That's what's crazy. Just like the ATF. All these gun laws are unconstitutional. It says shall not be infringed. I mean, the Constitution was written so a third grader at that time could understand it. It wasn't written with big fancy words. And it goes back to our education system. They don't educate our children on the Constitution. You want to know why? Because our rights don't come from the government. Our rights come from God, our Creator. And the Constitution was written to prevent the government from infringing on our natural God-given rights. And when you have an educated citizenry, people who understand that, we don't look to the government for our answers. We look to God for our answers. We look to God for permission to do something. But my generation and younger especially has been convinced that our rights come from the government, that the government allows us to do this. And therefore, when you need something or you want something, you look to the government. And that is a major issue in terms of where we're at as a country. We got to get back to teaching. When people graduate high school, they should have a deep understanding of the Constitution, of their constitutional rights. They want to do this standardized test junk that's really irrelevant. The only test they should be required to take upon completing high school should be a test on the Constitution and understanding a deep understanding of the Constitution. That's the only standardized test that we should have.
Have you noticed how everyone in the media and everywhere else is now constantly referring to the fact that we must save our
Democracy, of course. It's constitutional republic.
We don't live in a democracy.
Exactly.
That's something that needs to be shouted from every mountaintop.
I would agree 100%. And it's the Mockingbird media. They push that out there, and you got all these people. I call them CNN parakeets because they just repeat everything they hear on CNN, and they turn around and they repeat that over and over and over, and they really get convinced of that.
But they're doing it on purpose.
They are.
Because they know what it means.
100%. And by definition, they're not that much different, but by the perception of the meaning of it is totally different. They want mob rule. That's what they want. And that's why you got some of these states who are joining the abolish the Electoral College Act, and they're going to follow the popular vote and all this stuff. That'd be terrible for states like West Virginia. It would be terrible for all the small communities out there, the backbone of this country. And that's what's frustrating. Nothing frustrates me more than someone sitting in a high-rise apartment building in New York City trying to tell us here in West Virginia about the environment. It's like, you guys, you don't know anything about the environment or about nature, about any of that stuff, and you're trying to tell us how do we have to live our lives. It's unbelievable. But it's, conservative, some of this is kind of, our personalities used against us a little bit. And so as conservatives, we just want to be left alone. We just want to live our lives. We're busy building businesses and raising children and doing all these things. We just want to be left alone. Whereas the left, they're more of a herd mentality, so that it's easier to whip them up and get them out to protest something. We're too busy working and doing stuff. And as conservatives, we always also, just by nature, as Christians, always want to take the high road. And we say, it's not the hill to die on. That's not the hill to die on. I think we're at a point where we're looking around, it's like there's not any other high ground to move to. We're on the last hill right now. We're backed into a corner, and we're going to have to fight back at this point. And especially now they're coming after our children. If we're going to be a society that's not even going to protect our children, I don't even know if I would want to be a part of that society, to be honest with you.
Why don't we take one more for Derek, and then we'll let him take a break.
If our government is pushing all these regulations that are slowly destroying our country, but yet they don't enforce the laws at the border and allow the illegal immigrants to come and make us up and using our tax dollars to pay for their comforts.
Yep.
Where is the reasoning for that?
Well, there is no reasoning. It's all from kickbacks and everything. And our government, in my opinion, for those things, a lot of research to prove this, they're child sex trafficking children right now through the border. There's 85,000 missing children that we know of right now who's come across this border that is, we don't know where they're at. They're just missing, and we pass them off to whoever. Yeah, exactly. I'll tell you, they're talking about impeaching Mayorkas. I mean, that's nice. I think Mayorkas and Fauci should be shackled in front of the jury, facing charges of treason and crimes against humanity. I think impeachment's too nice for those guys.
Tell us about the massage parlor China's created.
Here in the U.S., that's what I'm talking about. The child sex trafficking that's going on. It's really sad. So we got 85,000 missing children in this country that we know of. Our government was using WhatsApp. I don't know if you guys ever use WhatsApp. Our government's using WhatsApp. So they get a kid who came across the border, and they have literally something pinned on them that says contact this person. So they contact this person through WhatsApp, which is a Facebook messaging app of some sort. There's no way to track it or anything like that. And they say, yeah, I'm that person. And they hop on an airplane and fly them across the country and just hand them off to this person with no documents, no nothing. That's what our government's doing right now. And then they're missing, and they go back to try to find them, and they don't know where they're at. Seriously, there's what's her name? I can get her name. There's a couple of whistleblowers from the CPS or the DHS and the CBP, Customs Border Patrol agents, who come out talking about this over the last probably 6 months or so. They've been doing a lot of interviews, and I've had some good conversations with them on what's going on in terms of the trafficking that's going on. This is before the border was open because they were bringing in all the drugs, and that was their cash cow, that was their money. Now it's humans. It's the people, it's the children. But if you really look, our border right now, look, if we were under threat here in Greenbrier County or in West Virginia, right, and we were all fleeing to be refugees to go find safety as men, we're going to take our women and children with us, aren't we?
Yeah.
We're going to leave them behind to where it's not safe. But if we are leaving here to go fight a war somewhere, we're going to leave our women and children behind. And look at these people coming across the border. It's military-aged men with no women and children. So why are they coming here? If they're seeking refugees, if they're coming here for protection, why do they leave their women and children behind? If they truly are coming here for protection, and they left their women and children behind, that's not the type of men we want in our society anyways.
Aren't they trying to use immigrants to vote as well?
Well, they are, but here's the other thing a lot of people talk about. President Trump discussed it in 2020. In addition to the voting, this is why West Virginia lost a congressional district, really. They count these illegals in the census. And the census is determined by how much population's in your state to determine how many congressional members you get. And so part of the reason we lost one is they were counting all these illegals in these other states. Had they not been doing that, we wouldn't have lost one. We'd still have 3 representatives in our state instead of 2. So once again, Republicans and conservatives and people in our state anyways are hurting because we lost a congressional rep. So now we only have 2. It's the whole southern half of the state. It needs to be divided in 3. But that's a big reason why they're bringing them in too, is that and the money. There's these facilities, I can't remember what they're called now, you can find it online, where they house these people when they come across. I don't think you guys are understanding how much money these contracts are worth. These are private companies who have an in with the federal government of some sort, and they are getting multiple billion-dollar contracts to house these people in tents when they come across the border. And guess what? Those people are turning around and giving kickbacks to all, not just federal level. Kerry Lake's talked about it, about going on in Arizona and Texas and a few of these places along the border. Here's the thing. A few years ago, Texas, Arizona, these were border states. We're all border states and border communities at this point. We've been invaded so much. We've all been affected in some way or another. So.
All right, why don't we take a moment and appreciate Derek for coming on?
I'll be around all night, guys. If you have any time.
All right, we got a couple minutes left.
Is it?
Well, yeah, go find.
Yeah, you gotta find you. By the way, at the bottom of my flyer here is the website, evansforwv.com. You can head over there. There's a button to donate if you want to. You guys can do that. If you don't want to do that, you can also sign up to volunteer. We have door knockers, we have phone bankers, all this stuff all throughout the district right now. And if you don't want to do any of those things, add my family and I to your prayer list, because this is spiritual warfare. We need all the prayers you can get. So thank you guys.
Let's appreciate everyone. All right, before we break, we got 2 minutes left. We are blessed with a number of candidates here tonight, local candidates here tonight, and it'd be remiss on my part if we didn't take a moment to introduce them and ask them to take just a moment to talk about who they are, what they're running for, and how their campaign is going. So, Mr. Mark Robinson, you want to start?
Mark Robinson, I'm running for sheriff because the family court took my family away from me 7 years ago. 7 kids, 17 sexes, and so that's
Very good. Thank you. Thomas?
My name's Thomas Perkins. I'm currently running for District 46 of the West Virginia House of Delegates, which represents eastern Greenbrier and southern Pocahontas counties. I'm running for juvenile justice reform. I was in the state's custody for 2 years as a child, and we got some serious problems going on in the juvenile justice system. Big Pharma has been drugging our kids for a long time, and as y'all know, we have an opioid epidemic in the state, but they've really went after our children inside the state's custody, and the media is not allowed to report on it or talk about it.
Very good. Thank you. Denise, did I put you on the spot? How's Patrick doing?
He's doing great, he's doing great. Anyway,
All right.
he's doing great, the campaign's going great, he's traveling all over the state. He's won several of the cases at the Supreme Court that were referenced here tonight, so I think he just actually did make his Supreme Court President Trump down the ticket in Colorado. So
Correct.
I think people might have seen him on Fox.
Good deal. Thank you. Thank you for that. All right, moving on. Boogie?
George Boogie Ambler, and I'm running for the 47th delegate seat, which is the western side of 219 from Oregon Cave, area Second Creek, all the way over to Rainelle, etc. Platform pretty simple. I don't think we ought to have traveling teams and coaches. I think we looked at some situations down in Charleston that need to be addressed that we've kind of got off the map of where we're going with things. This legislative session now has been an extremely tough one. Simply because, hey, I'm tickled that we got tax reform on Social Security. I think I paid for it for 55 years, and I'm kind of glad. But let's be careful about how much we cut. We're in prosperous time in the state of West Virginia right now. We got money, that's true. But where we're going to be in 2 years or 4 years from now. So we're going to have to be extremely careful. So what you got to have, and I truly think is, you got to have someone who will go down and not only work for you, because you're the ones going to elect us, go down and work for you, and not go as some we've heard that are there working for whom? Themselves. I'm not a career politician. I was in for 6 years, and I've been out for 6. I've been out of there for 6, and I've taken a hard look at some of the things that have taken place these last 6 years. And folks, I can tell you something. It's wonderful to have supermajority, but when supermajority has 3 or 4 different segments in it, somewhere along the line we got to come back together and start passing legislation that is for everyone and not each little individual group that wants something. So, hey, on the 47th, if you want to sign tonight, they're not out yet. I've got some in my car. I'll be glad to give you one. George Boogie Ambler.
Very good.
Thanks.
Doug Beard, you want to talk about?
Sure. Yeah. Charles Beard, go by Doug. You'll see my signs out soon. Just got some in today. Been working on a voter registration list going over it. Getting ready to do some door-to-door campaigning. Bring 36 years combined experience to the campaign of corrections, law enforcement, and magistrate. 9 of those years were with the sheriff's department. Chief deputy my last year and did about everything the sheriff's department can do. So I look forward to the campaign trail and seeing a lot of folks with the door-to-door campaign coming up. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Let's see who's next. Greg, what are you running for?
Yeah, I'm running in the 46th district for the council delegates. Take too much time. My platform's almost exactly the same as Derek's. I'm a Christian conservative. I believe in biblical values, pro-life, supporter of the Second Amendment, and truly I believe the solution to a lot of the problems we talked about here tonight is the gospel and biblical values. Yeah, I believe I'm the most conservative candidate. If you agree with what I believe in, then I appreciate your vote.
Thank you, Greg. And Steve.
Hey there, Steve Snyder. I'm running for District 47, Boogie and I. The bottom line is this: I'm the only veteran in this primary race. 20 years and 12 days in the Coast Guard. You wouldn't think that we're around the world, but I was there with our member of the Joint Chiefs and the Secretary of Transportation. I've seen what goes on around the world. I know what goes on here locally. I've patrolled these borders for more drugs and more migrants, probably than anybody in the room. And if you have, then let's have a great conversation about that. I know a lot about how ICE works, how CBP works, how the federal government works, where the drugs are coming from, because I've tracked them all. Airborne targets from South America and the Yucatan Peninsula. But at the same time, right here in West Virginia, we have our own issues. We have to deal with them. The bottom line is this: I got a brain and a spine, and I'm willing to use them both. I will not sell my soul to the devil for this job or any other, and I think there's a few people in this county that know that I won't. Right is right, wrong is wrong, and this is about service, service to the people, because the people control the power, government doesn't. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Did I miss anybody? You want to leave anybody out? I'll make sure we got everybody. This is a great opportunity going into the primary season to kind of know your candidate. So with that, I would wish everybody a blessed Easter and enjoy the State of the Union this evening. So have a good night.